Welcome to the 8th Stroke Buddy Support Group meeting. I'd like to welcome all of our regulars, and we have a couple of new people this morning, and hopefully a bunch of people are going to watch on YouTube. And we talk about different things that are involved in stroke recovery, mostly the things that we have to deal with as survivors. And we're looking for what folks would like to talk about so that we can better serve the stroke community. So let's see. Linda, you mentioned fatigue, so we could start with fatigue, and anybody else is welcome to chime in as to what they would, their biggest issues are. What issues do you have with fatigue, Linda?
I get tired really easily, and I can't go a day without a nap. Part of that may be age. I'm in my late 60s, but before the stroke, I never had a nap problem though. So I read on Facebook. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I just saw you leaning in.
I was
But
looking
I read on Facebook that there are many people who seem to have problems with stroke fatigue or stroke exhaustion. And when my fatigue gets to the point of exhaustion, I find I'm completely immobile. Like this, I can't move at all. It's that bad. And I am now, I just turned 3 years post-stroke this month. So I asked a therapist, and she was a psychologist, a neuropsychologist, and she said the best thing is caffeine. It just happens very often. So she recommended caffeine. Other than that, she had no solutions. I have asked the doctor for medication, my neurologist, and he said no. He won't do that. You just work through it. But I have not been able to work through it. But I had a pretty massive stroke, so that may be part of the problem. My brain has to be active and aware to move my left side, any of it.
Linda, can I chime in, please?
Please do. I'm sorry to keep talking.
First of all, do you understand what causes your fatigue? Your fatigue is, and it was explained to me this way, and I really like it. It's like a major network of freeways in a major metropolitan area such as Los Angeles, for example. Now, what happens is you had damage in your brain someplace. That damage is just like road damage, just like a road hazard or damage to the road. Because things aren't moving freely, you have congestion and you have roadblocks, and you have to take a different route. You have to take a detour. So your neural pathways just don't have the freedom like they used to. So they're going from point to point, but all of a sudden there's a roadblock in the way. Now it has to take a different detour and a different route. And this causes you a lot of fatigue. Just like if you're driving down the freeway and all of a sudden there's a road blockage, now you have to take a different route. It takes a lot more energy, a lot more time. So that's what it is. Now, what are there medicines to take care of this? Unfortunately, no, there are no medicines. But what I found is to turn everything off completely and sit there and meditate for 15 to 20 minutes. Don't fall asleep, because when you fall asleep, you're dreaming and these neural pathways are still trying to fire. But just try to clear your mind, turn everything off, and just close your eyes and just meditate about something. Meditate about a flower or an event, and try to keep your mind on that and try to have nothing else in it. And this will relax your mind and calm it, and it'll make the fatigue a little bit better. And in time, you're going to get stronger. And with Lauren, I also highly recommend music. Music has been said that it's like a catalyst to get things moving within your brain. It excites your neural pathways. So between the two, meditate for a little bit, and then maybe have some time where you just listen to some nice, easy music that you enjoy. Those are the two medicines that you can use They're natural. They're whole. I mean, they're not some strange chemical that you're going to put into your brain that's going to cause a side effect. But those are the two things that you can do to fight the fatigue. But it's going to happen because your neural pathways just aren't like a freeway like they used to be. Okay, and you'll learn that the more activity you have, the faster you get fatigued, and you can control it by having a nice environment. First of all, go out and get rid of all your incandescent bulbs and buy some soft LED bulbs, and especially an LED bulb that you can maybe dim. Bright lights are going to affect that. Loud music is going to affect that. All of these things are going to affect it.
Thank you very much. What is your name again? Because I don't have it on my iPad.
My name is Joe McCullough.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you so much. I like the meditation part especially. I have never tried meditation.
Put it in your calendar. Find a time in your day, have your breakfast, sit down and say, okay, this is my quiet time. After your breakfast or after an event, this is your quiet time. TV is going to make your fatigue a lot worse.
A lot of people think meditation involves some kind of active, chanting or something, but it really is just clearing your mind. So if you think you don't know how to do it, it's just clearing your mind. Joe, she lives in the Los Angeles area, so we could put it in terms that she could understand, which is, okay, Linda, imagine the 405 is shut down.
No, 405 is a good one. I don't know how you know that, but that's a good one. That's not even far.
When the 405 is
right near me.
When the 405 is shut down, or it's 7 lanes in each direction of stopped cars, nothing goes anywhere. And
I've been up since 4 in the morning, and already there's always 1 or 2 highways shut down every working morning. Every morning people work. There's always a highway somewhere in LA shut down, or near LA.
Mm-hmm.
Near LA.
I had my stroke in Dana Point.
Oh, really? Really?
Yep.
I know where that is.
Yeah. So it's just like the 405 shutting down, and now you got to try to get up to the 5, hoping that that's clear. Or you can just sit there and relax, okay?
Thank you very much. Putting it well. Thank you.
Linda, do you find that it occurs at any particular times of day, or after you engage in, I don't want to say strenuous activity, strenuous mental activity? Or is there...
I find either one. If I have either strenuous mental or, for me, strenuous physical activity,
as a talker too would be incredible to help.
More. Oh, sorry.
They're coaching.
Somebody, go ahead, Deborah. Deborah? Oh, maybe she meant to mute herself. Go ahead, Linda.
No,
Sorry,
I was going to
guys, didn't
say
realize
any
I wasn't
strenuous
muted.
activity is more likely to occur. More likely.
Oh, but sometimes if you can find a connection between, why when it's happening and why it's happening, then you can, if you do a couple hours of something mental and that gets you could try, breaking it up or something. I don't know how bad I had it. I had it for sure. I didn't like the whole concept, so I kind of powered through mine. Wasn't real easy. Wasn't a lot of fun. I don't know if anybody can do it. What about you, Mike? I'm going to call on Mike and Andre and maybe Erica, since they hadn't been here before. Did you suffer from fatigue, Mike?
Yes. I mean, I think everybody does, but every day about 3 o'clock, it starts going downhill, and I start getting sleepy. And a lot of times I'll go get back in the bed and go to sleep, take a nap in the bed instead of in this chair, I think what bothers me most about it is I don't get anything done. I've got the ADHD pretty bad. Um, and there's a lot of projects I'd like to get done and get out and work on, but it just don't get done. And I can use the fatigue as an excuse, not to do stuff,
Mhm.
not to get up and do my exercises and stretches and stuff. You know, it's easy to use that fatigue as an excuse not to do it.
Got to be careful of that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a frozen shoulder now, so I mean, working on my arm is excruciatingly painful because of the frozen shoulder. But
Oh yeah.
so, but yeah, I've got to keep going. I think the fatigue helps me along with losing the motivation to get up and do anything.
Well, it's hard to feel motivated when you're tired.
Right. I mean, yeah, and it's real. I mean, it's not something that I'm just making up or an excuse I'm making not to do something. I mean, it's real. The fatigue is actually there, and I do get really sleepy and tired, even though I sleep good at night.
Mike, do you have your daily goal of what you want to accomplish the next day?
Most of the time, yes, sir, I do.
Good. I find that when I go to bed at night, I think about the goal of what I want to do the next day. And if I have that goal, then I have something to shoot for. And then I always say, reward yourself when you accomplish the goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I write things down on a whiteboard, that I want to, if I'm thinking about today, what I want to get done, if I say, okay, I want to do this tomorrow, I'll write it down on a whiteboard, so that I'll have it, it's there in the morning and it's there to remind me, oh, hey, I wanted to do this today.
Yep. And
Because
I think it's really important to get up in the morning, shower, eat breakfast, and get ready for the day. And even though you have a handicap and maybe you don't have to work, treat it like you have to do. Get up every morning, get ready, get going, and try not to. Well, I take my time and have my coffee in the morning, watch the birds, but still, I try to get into that routine. And when I was in a nursing home, I had the routine of doing nothing, and that nothing begets nothing.
yeah, I understand that. I mean, I'm trying hard to get a routine. I mean, but when I don't have anywhere to go or anything like that, I just sit here. I don't have to get up and do anything. And usually, when it comes to fatigue, by the time I get up, take a shower, get dressed, and get something to eat, I'm beat. It's over. I mean, I'm already at the limit of my energy. I've done used up a whole day's energy within 2 hours.
Yep. And you will learn as time goes on how to handle that fatigue. As I said, your quiet time, your meditation time, maybe time with music or something that relaxes you, quiet your brain, and then in time your fatigue will get better because your brain will get stronger. You're exercising your brain just like you're exercising a muscle.
All right. Well, I'm thinking about as far as making that schedule. There's in our small city here outside of Memphis. We have a really nice senior center not far from here, and I was thinking about getting my wife to drop me off there on her way to work and stay there all day. But I was talking about that ADHD. I mean, I'll get bored there, and then I'll just be stuck there.
How far away is it?
It's probably 3 miles. Too far. It's way too far to walk. I can make it. I can make it about a half mile up to the store walking. But I mean, by the time I get back, before I get back to the house, I'm ready to sit down, take a nap right where I sit.
You can get there. I wanted to go to a stroke support group at Saddleback Church, and it was 12 miles away. And I walked, and I made it. That walking and trying to set your goal to walk, that constant, it's a repetition. of trying to do things over a long, extended period of time. That's what's going to exercise your mind and get it better.
Right.
Okay, so if you're doing some exercises or doing something physical, make sure that you're trying to improve on it all the time, because you're exercising your mind just like you'd be exercising a muscle.
Very much so. I asked my neurologist after my stroke about this because I was pushing myself pretty hard, and I would do what I called run out of brain. I could actually feel it, and I would kind of stop and shake it off and go back at it. And I was worried that I might be, that might not be a good idea. So I asked my neurologist, and he said, it is a good idea to push yourself as hard as you can. And he said, your brain will let you know when you're pushing it too hard. So,
Well, that's why you're an awesome person, because every day you go out and try to do something that puts us all in awe. You really work hard, and that's, if you look around and you see the people that are successful in their stroke recovery, that when they're able to, they push themselves, and they always try to put their loved ones and their people around them in awe by being absolutely awesome.
I completely agree. And your physical therapist and everybody you come in contact with, and most importantly, yourself.
Well, I will say this again. Your physical therapist is just like your piano teacher. He or she comes in and they'll teach you some chords and teach you some movements. But if you don't do anything for the rest of the week, you're not going to get any better. So your physical therapist comes in and teaches you some things, but you have to practice to get better. You have to practice on your own. That's what's going to get you better.
Make my life easier.
Let's see. Andre, are you willing to talk? Did you experience any fatigue?
But I didn't start it.
Maybe not. Kelly?
I have a question now.
Sure.
Hey guys, my name's Deborah Swayze. I was a nurse for 40 years and took care of a lot of people that had strokes. Had my stroke on September 1st last year, and found the worst part was the fatigue. Still is. Even though I stay active and I continue to do that, it seems to definitely help. It also helps me sleep better at night. But can you guys touch on a little bit? Because I find eating right and taking really good supplements has helped me too. Can you guys touch on that?
I could talk a little bit about eating right, because I've always tried to eat right. And I think it's real important to everything, whether you've had a stroke or not. But I think it's particularly important after a stroke. But I don't know, the people vary a bunch on what's good to eat. There are a lot of people who think that you should eat a lot of salmon because people call fish brain food. And supplements, there are all kinds of supplements out there, and a lot of people swear by ones that they've tried, and then other people chime in. I see it get posted a lot. Other people chime in and said it did nothing for me. You got anti-supplement people. You got people trying to sell supplements. That's a difficult one. I don't know what kinds of things you take or have found useful. I take basic vitamins and a probiotic, and other than that, I don't really take any supplements.
I think what I'm seeing in the group that we're in, the community, is a lot of people using stimulants, which to me is kind of counteractive sometimes, because you can have that crash afterwards. People drinking a lot of sodas and coffee, and I think things that are a little more natural that have more energy types in it. Also, I love what you were talking about, is walking at exercise. To me, if I don't move my body, my exhaustion is horrible through the day.
Mhm.
Deborah, where are you located? Do you find it easy to get out and walk?
I'm in Florida, Northeast Florida, which is really, it's really nice in the winter and the fall, even in the spring. But as soon as summer rolls in, it gets a little hot and humid. But then we have a mall right across the street. It's an outlet mall, but it's huge. And I walk there. My husband and I walk there. But we also have a little treadmill in the house and a glider. But I find that if my body doesn't move and I become sedentary, that makes me even more tired.
Yeah, and more movement equals less depression.
Yeah.
Yeah, I pulled it out of CVS.
For some reason, Deborah, I thought you were in Texas. I don't know why.
I don't know. A lot of people come Texas because I always wear that cowboy hat.
Maybe that's it.
It is. It is. A lot of people say that. They go, I thought Texas because of your hat. Nope, Northeast Florida.
Deborah, if I could say this, sustain repetition. Those are the two words. Do
Yep.
something repetitively for a long period of time. And the longer you do it, that's what's going to develop your neural pathways.
Absolutely. I agree.
So walking for me was a great thing. I used to live in Southern California and as I said, Dana Point and Mission Viejo. So walking was great back then. I moved to Indiana. Walking in the winter is not so great. But there again, I have a treadmill and a rowing machine and all that stuff in my basement.
Absolutely.
I find I like to go to the gym. I have a treadmill, but there's something about going to the gym that formalizes it. After a bunch of the pandemic, I started putting on real clothes again, like getting dressed for work. Well, it's a mindset. You're sitting around in your pajamas. You don't really feel like you're at work.
Exactly. That's why I love when you guys said, get up, take your shower, and get dressed.
Right.
Yep,
Right.
get up, suit up, show up.
Absolutely. I love that advice.
Okay. Well, let's see. I continue to pick on people. Do either Kelly or Erica have anything to say about fatigue that they might have experienced? Kelly, I think you're muted.
Still learning.
There you go. It's okay. We're all
I
still
take
learning.
fish oils for my brain. I call it my brain vitamins.
Careful, out. We go to the doctor.
Fish oil?
Yes.
Are you on blood thinners? Good.
Just
Okay,
blood pressure.
I'll repeat this again. I repeat it a lot. One of the things that people who are on blood thinners need to be careful about taking fish oil, CoQ10, and turmeric. All of them are natural blood thinners. And if you're on blood thinners, they may work fine with your blood thinners. There's some that they work okay with, some that they don't work okay with. Don't listen to any stroke survivor, including me, about
Right.
this. Talk to your doctor. Right, Joe?
100% right. But
Absolutely.
I'm also going to say all of those things that you mentioned on what type of stroke did he have. If you had a hemorrhagic stroke, you want to stay away from blood thinners as much as possible.
I had a hemorrhagic stroke and then I turned up with AFib. So they had me on blood thinners. And in fact, my cardiologist at first put me on a half dose because he was afraid because I had a hemorrhagic stroke. And then I went to two other cardiologists who both said, no, that's wrong. You need to be on the full dose. There's no counterindication for blood thinners and another stroke. I don't know.
I had a doctor
That's true.
I had a doctor that wanted to put me on aspirin. So I turned around and called Mission Viejo, asked my neurologist that did my surgery, and he said, no way should you ever take an aspirin, ever.
I assume you had a hemorrhagic stroke then.
Yeah, I had a hemorrhagic stroke in my cerebellum, and they went in for a 12-hour surgery, and they took away my left vertebral artery.
You know, to Ralph's point, everyone's situation is different. You need to consult your doctors. You know, a stroke survivor cannot give you advice on what meds to take or not to take.
No, I think that the groups are good for a lot of things. Medical advice is not one. And one of the things that people can do is they can say, my doctor has me on this and I found that. I mean, I think all that kind of stuff is okay. You know, it's when people start saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, that I think they're overstepping the bounds.
May I add one more thing to that, Ralph?
Sure.
Is also a lot of people don't realize that CBD can also thin your blood, and people tend to speak about it like it's safe, and it is a safe supplement, but it can do that. So you want to be really careful if somebody tells you to take CBD oil, that you talk to your doctor first, because my husband, after his stroke, we put him on that for his pain and sleep and anxiety, but the doctor was aware and he took a very close eye on his PTINR and stuff. So a lot of people don't know that.
A lot of people seem to swear by it and recommend it to other people. I guess it works, or they wouldn't be doing that. So almost seems hard to believe that it could cure so many or help so many things. So Deborah, did I hear you say that when your husband had a stroke, so both of you had strokes?
Yeah, he had a stroke 11 years ago. He had atrial fib that he didn't know he had. So yeah, he had a stroke, and luckily I was working at the time, but it was my day off, and I was sitting in the car next to him in the passenger seat when I realized he couldn't put the keys in the ignition, and he turned around and he said, and his face was drooping, and something is wrong. So we both have, yes, and we're unbelievably doubly grateful that we both were there for each other and took care of each other.
That's the first. I haven't heard. I'm sure there are other couples out there, but that's a new one for me.
Yeah, crazy.
I don't know if Erica's willing to talk or not. Maybe not. Just not trying to engage people, not pick on them, but and I don't know everyone.
That could change.
So actually, Linda dropped out, but we were talking about meds. The only thing that there are no meds for fatigue. She talked to a doctor and recommended caffeine. I'm not sure about that. I mean, obviously people drink a lot of coffee, but one thing you don't want to do is drink a lot of energy drinks unless you have approval from your doctor to do so. A number of people have had strokes because they overindulged in energy drinks. So well, they might recommend caffeine. I'm not sure that doctors would recommend mega caffeine. So,
I mean, let's see.
well, you know, we've talked about fatigue for a little while. Let's talk about what our biggest issues were. Kelly, what's been your biggest issue since your stroke?
The fatigue is the worst part of it, I believe. After I overcame walking, learned how to walk again, use my left hand. Yay.
Yay.
Fatigue was the worst. I have to admit that. I had a ischemic from a medical procedure that caused my stroke. They said mini, but I don't know what's mini about this. Nothing in my case.
Yeah, somebody, once said they had a minor stroke, and I said, I don't think there's any such thing as a minor stroke. It was, they're pretty serious life-changing events.
2017 till now, I'm still each day trying to do what I can. So nothing new.
What do you do about fatigue? Do you try and push through it, or do you take naps, or?
I try to push through it, because if I lay down, I can't usually sleep, but just to try and meditate, I'm still trying to learn how to do that.
I have
That's what Joe recommended earlier. I think you might have been here. He was saying music and clearing your mind, meditating. I also try to push through it. I also don't do very well with naps. I actually never took one. If I take a nap and I actually manage to go, usually I lay there and I go, this is stupid, and I can't go to sleep. If I manage to go to sleep, I get all disoriented. I sleep for an hour or two. I wake up and it's like, I don't know. I wake up every morning and I'm fine. If I take a nap for an hour or two, I wake up and I'm like, it takes me a half an hour to wake up. So
I'm the same way, Ralph. I'm the same way.
Yeah,
I cannot take a nap.
I don't find power naps beneficial for me.
Not at all.
interesting. Yeah, I usually lay down and I'm serious about it. I'm laying there and I go, this is stupid. This is stupid. I'm not going to be able to go to sleep. And of course, you can't if you're saying that. But so everybody's got a different way of dealing with it, although there are some, definite similarities. Winnie, I'm not sure we've heard. What was your biggest challenge in with your stroke?
I never had the problem of being fatigued at all because I never was, really tired or anything. So I was always finding something to do. So whenever I would think I'm ready to fall asleep or something, I would stand up and go into another room or something just to find something to do in there. So I never had that fatigueness in me.
Interesting. So what was the hardest thing for you to deal with your stroke?
Like I walk every day half a mile. So even that is not really a problem. But when I first started walking, it was like tilted steps, and now I'm more straight. So now walking heel to toe, heel to toe. So I'm really happy about that. But as far as what I'm trying to do now is focus on my hand and getting that fingers to open up more. And I told you my eyes, it's like the eyelid is droopy. You gave me that website to do, but it's not like really the kind of exercise I needed to do because I need to do from bottom up. So I don't know if that's gonna help or not.
And Deborah, what about you? What was your biggest challenge that you had to overcome with your stroke?
The fatigue, because I've always been very active and I hit the ground running in the morning and I don't stop until it's time for bed. And I've always been one to be very active and enjoyed doing things. And I find that I have to pace my day and kind of plan my day. If I know I have things to do, I make sure I'm rested in between and I'm not doing one thing back to back. But it's getting better.
What do you do to rest? Just take it easy?
I usually will just sit back and I used to read, but now I do the audiobooks, which is better, or just put some music on and a really nice soft candle and get a cup of like green tea or chamomile tea or something like that. And it's just soothing and it gives me a little time to just kind of unwind, turn my brain off per se. And once I call it my recharge time, and then I'm recharged and I feel like I slept, but sleeping makes it worse. I wake up like you, very groggy, confused. I'm like, oh God, I got to start my day over again. So yeah, the downtime, the quiet, the unplugging of the brain.
Okay, I've been trying for 10 minutes to get away from the topic of fatigue fairly unsuccessfully.
I can't help it. That was my fatigue.
No, I'm not picking on you, Deborah.
I know.
The official survey results are, according to this group, that fatigue was the biggest issue that they had to deal with. I'm now sitting here trying to think what mine was because it wasn't fatigue. Mine, I guess, was my shoulder. My shoulder just took forever. And because because walking progressed fairly well for me, let's put it this way, I did a lot of work on my walking to make it progress fairly well, but because other things were progressing, that made my shoulder all the more frustrating. Anyway, so fatigue is the was the survey winner here this morning.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Hey, Ralph, this is Dennis. I'll throw something else out there.
Sure, please.
You know, one of my major problems is just pain. I mean, I have in my affected side, in the shoulder and the arm, and in the pectoral muscles. I mean, I'm chronic 24/7 pain. And that's been very disheartening. So that, and then anxiety and mental anguish. I mean, I'm moving now from the physical stuff to the mental stuff. I mean, I struggle most with that.
Well, the mental stuff is not to be underestimated. You know, if I had to guess, I would say, you know, that in another group of 10 or 12 people, you might find that that was the biggest issue. And I would have to think that both dealing with the mental aspect and the fatigue, and they can kind of go hand in hand, because if you're fatigued, you're not very good at dealing with anything. Is there anything that you found that will relieve the pain? They gave me
No, it's range of motion exercises. And it's, I'm on several prescriptions for nerve pain.
Do they help?
I'm not sure anymore, you know. One of the things that we decided we're doing is I'm shaking up my doctors here the next couple of months. You know, I'm going to a new neurologist just because I feel like we're missing something. I don't know what it is, but and then I want to go to a new pain management doctor. You know, it's just to shake it up a little bit because, I'm at a point where, okay, now what? What's next? What are we missing? Because, I feel like I've hit a wall to some extent.
I'm a firm believer that you have your primary effects. You have a stroke in your cerebellum and you lose your balance. You have a stroke in your left frontal area and you lose your movement of your right, or vice versa. But then I think there's a secondary effect, and that's the effects of the effects. So if you lose your ability to move an arm or a hand, then all of a sudden, because your muscles contract and they don't get used, then you end up with pain a lot of times, or you discomfort. We all talked about fatigue. That's a secondary effect that you have.
Yep.
It's not your primary, but it's a secondary. So you have these two things going on, and you have to really take a look at it and say, is this a primary effect or is this a secondary effect? Okay, if it's a primary effect, I need to get my brain working to get it back fixed. If it's a secondary effect, there again, I might have to move it or get through it some way. But I think, there's those two. And the second big secondary effect is the mental aspect. I was lucky. I woke up happy. I said 533 Hubbard, Elkhart, Indiana, 46514, 1555 North Bay Drive. I recited phone numbers. I recited cousins and everything. I was happy. But I had a roommate, on the other hand, who was extremely bitter. And, that mental aspect is, how do you get someone to be happy that they are where they are?
You can't. I had a roommate who was really bitter too, and he wouldn't go to his physical therapy. And I kept telling him, I kept trying to encourage him. Heck, his family came around and they took me in the back hall and were, you know, asking me to help what I could do. And I said, I already am. But he wouldn't go to physical therapy. He was rude to the nurses. I kept telling him, the nurses are your lifeline, buddy. You better, you know, you want something, they're the ones going to bring it to you. You better be nice to the nurses. But he wouldn't. And, you know, I tried to joke with him. I called my wheelchair a BMW and his a Cadillac, and we crashed into each other a few times. And, you know, he wouldn't do it though. And I got a phone call about a year later from his wife, she didn't know who she was calling. She had my phone in her, like I said, I got involved with his family. She had my phone in her contacts list. And so she was just calling to see who the heck it was. And I told her, and I asked her how he was doing. And she said he passed away about 6 months ago. So he didn't last very long. I don't know what other medical issues he might have had, but I just don't think that people who are not doing well mentally stick around as long.
I had a roommate exactly like yours. It sounds like when I first met him, I thought he was a lot better than I was. He was able to he was able to have someone put him in a wheelchair, and he's able to stay in the wheelchair all day. And then I started getting better and better, and I invited him to the therapy room to do things with me. And he was doing that. And there again, 6 months after I left, he stopped doing all that and he passed. So mental attitude, there again, you can have all the drugs in the pharmacy you want, but they aren't worth a darn if you don't have the right mental attitude. If you have the right mental attitude, they will work.
Well, and you also need to engage with people. When I left the rehab hospital, they gave us 5 things that we should be doing. I'm going to blow this, I'm sure. One of them was eating right, exercising. Most of them were things that 4 out of the 5 of them were things I already did. Actually, the 5th I did too, but the 5th one kind of surprised me. The first 4, eating right, exercising, those kinds of things didn't surprise me. But the one that on the list that did was don't sit at home. Get out. You have to engage with people. We're social creatures as human beings, and we don't do well. And they actually mentioned that people who don't engage and don't socialize don't live as long. So that would be a real key thing. How do you do that when you're in a wheelchair? It's tougher, isn't it? I tell people to find something they're passionate about. Even if you're in a wheelchair, you can have Chris. Some hobbies have Zoom meetings and things. I also tell people to volunteer if they can. If you can move or get out at all, go volunteer. Couple reasons. You never meet crappy people when you volunteer because they're also volunteering. So they've got something going on in their heart. So, and you're doing some good. And
all right, Ralph, what were the last 2? I heard exercise, eating well, interaction with people. What are the last 2?
I told you I was going to blow it.
And I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I'm looking for some wisdom here.
I'll have to find out for you and message you. They all had to do with, the physical aspect of things as opposed to the mental, like exercise and eating right. There were 2 more in that vein, and the engaging with people was the only one that was, the odd man out. It was involved the more interaction in the brain than it did.
Well, and as we all know, the last year has made that a little more challenging too.
Yeah. That's why everybody's going crazy right now.
Yep.
Well, on that note, when you talk about eating right, your diet is so important, especially as you're recovering, because you need good nutrition. The nursing home I was at, everything was in a can. You know, the nursing home I was at, you couldn't relax because they made us keep our lights on 24/7 so they could come in and take care of us. You couldn't relax because they come in all the time and, you know, either give you medicine or your roommate medicine. The way it's designed, you couldn't relax. But things that you need to get better is you need good nutrition. You need a space in which you can relax and rest. And then after that, you need physical exercise.
Nursing home and hospitals are not a good place to rest. You ever notice they come get blood from you at 4 o'clock in the morning? There's a
That's frustrating. That's so frustrating to me because I was a nurse in a memory care unit, but I also used to work in maternity. And if you notice, there's no availability of downtime and treating people with brain injury, which you don't want the overstimulation any different than any other patient they put in a room with you. Whereas I noticed when it was in maternity, if you had a grandbaby or a baby, you know, you walk down those halls and they're shooing you. Shh. You go in the rooms and the mommies have quiet music and the lights are nice and dim. No, they want it all calm.
Yeah.
Now, why doesn't that apply to someone that's going through a traumatic brain event?
Because
It's infuriating.
because nursing homes and hospitals are designed with the caregivers in mind. How can they most efficiently give the care that they need to give? They are not designed in a way to provide the best for the patient.
Oh, that's terrible. I that was one thing I used to hate. I always made sure I gave them that quiet downtime, and I'd love to see this change one day and people with the brain injuries be treated a little bit different, have a different ward or something where their caregivers can do what they want. I don't put one of those lights on on your forehead when you come in the room, you know, don't blast the lights.
The worst thing you can have for a brain injury person, and people don't really realize this, is a fluorescent light.
Yeah.
Because of the way fluorescent lights turn on and off constantly, you don't realize it, but your brain does.
Oh yeah.
And that is extremely tiring. So right above your bed, they have a fluorescent light that they want to keep on all night.
Yeah.
You know, just from that standpoint. And then there's all these hard surfaces with all these noises.
Mm-hmm.
And then they wanted to keep the door open 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
I sort of took control of my own room along with my roommate, and we turned off the lights and we closed the door.
Oh yeah.
And they came in and yelled at us constantly. I said, listen, this is the way it is. Our lights are going to be off. Our doors are going to be closed. Our TVs are going to be off, and we're going to get some rest. I got in trouble one time for stealing a banana.
Huh.
But, I could tell story after story, but where I was at, the nursing home I was at, a subacute center, it was not designed for people to get well. It was designed to where the staff can most efficiently warehouse a person.
Well,
Exactly.
in nursing homes, that's basically what they're doing. They're warehousing people. I looked after a stroke survivor who was 50 and living in assisted living. Everybody else was 75. She didn't have anybody her age there. That was typical too. Maybe they should put all the stroke survivors on the maternity ward floor.
There you go. There you go. I like that idea.
Bring in some puppies, bring in some therapy dogs.
Yes, they just need to make the whole area different. It has to be different.
I'm here to tell you that it's not dying with dignity.
Okay, so, 50 years ago, I was the first father allowed in the delivery room when my daughter was born, because prior to that, they thought men didn't want to be involved or shouldn't be involved or whatever. So, I took the Lamaze classes and they had a certain date and our due date was after that. And so that was a big change because now all of a sudden fathers got involved. Well, somewhere between that time and the time my daughter had her daughter, it changed again. We need the same kind of revolution to go on with stroke. And that was all of a sudden, instead of birthing babies in like a operating room, they started making these spaces with music. And whoever heard of an underwater birth before about 1990,
Exactly.
so maybe we need the same kind of revolution, Deborah, to go on
Well,
to change the way we look at stroke and traumatic brain injury.
absolutely. I'm working with a guy in Jacksonville here in Florida who is an attorney. He's a litigator and he had a stroke and he's in recovery right now. And he's so frustrated of how the healthcare has booted him out and he has to do rehab on his own or pay for it. He was denied disability. And young guy, 40 years old, and he's now running for state senate. And we are going to be working together to get some things changed.
Change is not fast, and that's how it happens. And it can take, quite a number of years if somebody has to run for office and then, get some political power. It takes a few years to introduce bills, and, change is not fast, especially the kind of big change we're talking about here.
Well, maybe with Governor DeSantis, who is, for me, one of the best governors, maybe we'll see it a little quicker than not, but at least it's a start, right?
I guess. I don't know what a governor can do. It's usually the legislature, but yeah, well, if we aren't aware of it, we don't advocate for it, then it won't happen. So the first thing is to raise your voice, which is maybe what we're doing here a little bit this morning.
Yeah.
And then, beyond that would be, to get involved. I was involved with a group called Young Stroke that they were advocacy group. Unfortunately, the executive director, has kind of been inactive the last few years. But when they were active, we got a couple of bills through South Carolina state legislature that, were beneficial to stroke survivors. She worked with stroke neurologists at the Medical University of South Carolina. And of course, that's owned by the state. So that, gives the state legislature a different way of looking at it than, say, a private institution. But that kind of stuff, a bill would get introduced and, it take a year, just for something that was introduced to get voted on. So we're not going to see that kind of change overnight. And Joe,
we never see any kind of change overnight.
No. Why did they have you in a nursing home instead of like, at a rehab center? Your insurance or?
Well,
that's too personal. Don't answer it.
No. It's a great question because it's a great thing to understand how the system works. I had fantastic insurance. Okay, my first 3 weeks after my stroke and surgery was $800,000, and they paid all but $2,000 of that. But because I wasn't working and I did not have long-term care, I was turned over to Cal Optima. Now, Cal Optima and Social Security says, if you do not improve in the first 90 days, you're not going to improve. Chances are you're done. You're toast. Well, the funny thing of it is, the first 40 days of those 90 days, I was in a coma. So how are you going to improve when you're in a coma? I did improve by waking up. So after my 90 days was up, I first went to Kindred Hospital, which was a total joke because they didn't understand a cerebellum stroke at all. After 90 days, they said I had to get out of there. My son found this nursing home subacute center. because I was still on a feeding tube. I was on a feeding tube for almost 10 months. They said that my esophagus wouldn't close in time, and that's why I couldn't swallow. I could swallow just fine. It's just I was so seasick every time I ate something, I would throw up. I'd throw up even at the feeding tube. So I was denied physical therapy completely after 90 days. When
Seems
I went to the-
totally unfair to start the clock while you're in a coma. I mean,
Yeah.
who wrote that rule?
Well, and then I went to, when I went to the nursing home, the CNAs would walk me, but the therapist wouldn't do anything. Now I got to where I was getting better, and I was going to the therapy room, and I was lifting the weights, and I was trying to do sit-ups, and I asked the therapist to hold my knees down as like on a pad, and he wouldn't touch me. He goes, "Nope, I'm not getting paid for you, so I can't do it." You know, but I did all my therapy myself, and I think I was a better therapist for the other patients there than they were, because I was encouraging them and fighting for them. But that was my story. Luckily, I had a cross-country coach, and we would converse on Facebook from time to time, and well, quite often, and he kept me motivated. High school cross-country coach. I'm 62 years old, and I had a high school cross-country coach from when I was 16 to 17, who was probably my biggest advocate I had.
Once a coach, always a coach.
Well, he's the one who taught me, set the bar high, make my daily goals, go out and fight them, celebrate every goal. And Ralph, in 90 days, my son was told that I would never get better. When they sent me to the nursing home, they said I would never get better. But here I am. And I have to go out and cut the grass pretty soon because I have people coming over tonight. And my life is phenomenal. And I told you earlier that when I was in the nursing home, I had this thing. I was sitting there and said, I was in the wheelchair, I said, God, it'd be nice to be able to do something. Well, I found a 17-foot rowboat. I put it on 20-inch pilings, bolted it down. I'm filling it with dirt. I'm gonna make it a vegetable garden. And it is a wheelchair accessible vegetable garden. And I have the city looking at it, and we might build a wheelchair accessible raised bed garden for wheelchair patients. And it's just a cool thing to do. And I can't wait to have this happen where we can get people in a wheelchair from the area nursing homes. I'd like to put one at every nursing home. So these people can go and enjoy what is life. You plant something, it grows, you eat it, you harvest it. It's like a little life.
Somebody's got their audio on. Well, we're trying to keep these shorter rather than longer. We're right about an hour. So maybe we'll sign off till next week. Hopefully everybody got something out of this, and Joe, like we talked about, we're going to launch it on YouTube. So if you're having fatigue, as you heard here today, fatigue is very real, and we tried to give you some ways to deal with it. One of the best ways to deal with it is just keep at it, because time is one of the things that I can mute him. So everybody else see that? Okay. Now it's off. Anyway, so hopefully everybody got something out of this, and we'll come back. And part of the reason we're doing it is for all the YouTube viewers. So welcome to all the YouTube viewers out there. Keep coming back. We're going to keep doing them. And so that's it for this week. And coming up, I'm going to try and do some more organized things. I mentioned the one on attitude, keeping on track, and the importance of affirmations, and then one on women's stroke. I think it was Dennis suggested bed exercises. That's a good one, although it might be more suited to me making a video about it. I put it on both lists. And we welcome anybody's suggestions as to what we could and should talk about.
Let's not forget about the
So
ant.
I guess we'll see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in.